I still find it so strange to talk about awakening. And it still surprises me that I forget that that's what I'm talking about. Doing this kind of inquiry, if you want to call it that, or work of being in the present, or processing of what's unraveling when we shift out of this contracted, conditioned, separate self identity and open into the flow of what's here. It's okay, you can call it awakening. I don't even really know what that means, but that's not the point. That's not what I want to talk about right now. But it's coming up because I'm always just a little taken aback when that phrase comes up. But inquiring, exploring, charting this path with others, often what comes up to be worked with is distraction. So I want to talk a little bit about what happens when we're not distracted. Actually, I want to tell a little story about something that surprised me, like everything, but this what's the word? Stands out as alive right now. But I want to preface it by fleshing out what we mean by distraction for a moment, because it comes up a lot when I work with folks, in the sense that we expect certain kinds of distraction. We look out for based on what we're taught or learn about ourselves from spiritual teachings. Tell us to consume less foods of certain kinds, or the kind of purity of diet, or the purity of mental consumption. Consume less media, less films, less alcohol, less gossip, less ego inflating whatever. It could be trying to consume validation, trying to consume likes on your social media. Or there's so many forms of consumption that allows us to avoid this moment, to numb, to be distracted, to be in the mental space of trying to separate out, trying to make distance from the raw aliveness that's here, whether it's profound or mundane. And distraction comes in those forms, of course. Of course it does. Of course, there's a reason why the arguably most numbing and addictive substances are sought when we're suffering the most, because they really appear to help us to escape. They really appear to bring us to another planet. But I want to point to another form of distraction, numbness, escape, and relationship. conversation. What so many that I work with struggle with most is integrating this awareness, this awakeness that feels accessible unto oneself into the social space, into relationships, into family, into workplace, into politics, into whatever that relates to other people. And I might back that up to notice, I'm going to sneeze. Everything's blooming here. Literally on the trees. That's not a spiritual phrase. I might back that up to notice how present am I really with others? When around others, what's being noticed? What's being avoided? Is the conversation taking me somewhere so that I don't have to feel the feeling in the body of, I don't quite feel okay right now, or shame, or doubt, or desire, or excitement, or fear, or emptiness. To notice how we can consume in a relationship. We can consume verbally. We can consume emotionally. Consuming somebody's apparent happiness or confidence if it's a loved one that we need to be a certain way. Or maybe they're not appearing a certain way. Maybe there's a depression or a grief and we're consuming that emotion. And it's all that we can think about, and it's so threatening to the identity here. Needing to be the one who's making everybody okay or safe around others, and this depression is just not okay. It feels ungrounding or raw. Or maybe physically we're consuming our loved ones or our friends physically for labor, for sexual play or enjoyment. Or maybe we're just consuming their being so that there doesn't have to be an awareness or an attention here. It's like identity of a nobody. I'm the one that's with her or them. Maybe we're consuming their hierarchical status compared to me. I'm the one that's beneath them, or I'm the one that's above them. Like, how often are we really awake in relational field? And I'm gonna give my example in a minute. I think I teed this up and I haven't come back to it, but any one of those things that I just named, like connecting with someone mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, relationally, of course, can unfold clearly and truthfully. And when that happens, there's no grasping or holding on to or pushing away of it, and it's dynamic and it's flowing and it's moving into the next experience. And that's so rare in what I see with folks. It's so beautiful when it arises. And this work feels so effortless when it's clear that someone is relationally open and present and attuning without any kind of a relational avoidance. And it's not that the relational avoidance or distraction is a problem, but it just has a texture to it. It creates this stuckness, this apparent disconnection. And I could connect with that. I can feel the connection with this loving being who's not quite feeling safe or somehow feeling threatened, that there has to be a guarding a little bit or an apparent distance from just what's here between us. Because when you're connected with someone, it's not just an I experience and a you experience. And of course, in non-duality, we would say that it's always unity. And the truth is, in this relational world, like, we still have bodies and we still have individual spheres of experience that then come together and relate. And we relate in ways of communicating and connecting. So let me go back to my example and see where that wants to unfold before my battery dies. I was meeting with somebody. Beautiful, beautiful meeting. And this person directly articulated their expectations of me. And I don't even remember what the expectation was. But it was so uncovered, revealed, unfiltered, so honest, so true. I think maybe it was something like, what are you going to give me? I'm expecting freedom or liberation. I'm expecting you to give me something, or expecting to feel open and peaceful. Whatever it was, it could have even been like, I'm expecting that you're having a good day. That, and it happens a lot, but for some reason, the feeling here was stronger in that moment of just feeling the flash of fight, flight, freeze here. Like, not any one particular, but like the flash of the nervous system's response to feeling someone's expectation. Because that work that I do with folks, like, usually the first thing I say is, I have no agenda here. Awakening is arising. There's no thing to attain. There's no thing to give. There's no thing to teach. There's a leaning into or a surrendering to, or whatever words you want to choose, turning towards just this, more and more and more safety in that, more and more okayness with that, whatever this is. And when we do this together in a relatively safe space, it can feel even more supportive and more allowance from your mind body's conditioning to hide can start to soften, or to avoid can start to turn towards. And so when I, in that very, very present, very attuned moment, hear the truth, the clear truth of the conditioning saying, I expect you to give me this, feels unsafe. Because I can't give that. There's nobody here to give you anything. And what a gift to have it out and turn towards so that it could move and that we could laugh and that we could feel the truth of that. How that under the surface does impact the dynamic here. There's dancing around it. There's an unconscious orienting towards like unspoken expectation. And it might feel a little, I don't want to dive too deep with this because it can be a little confusing to talk in this way, but the nervous system's response to anything happening in the direct moment is awake. Sometimes it gets attached to the self of, oh, I'm the one that needs to protect. But when it's awake, it can just contract and guard for a moment and then relax if the threat passes. This is selfless protection. It's not a problem. And that's what arose for that moment with us of like articulating like an expectation of me that wasn't possible, some alarm, and then some relaxation, just sensing how safe and open and contacted this person was with me, like the true conscious relating. That doesn't mean that we're all blissful and in peace and on a cloud all the time, but that can be welcomed in and seen and turned towards clearly. And the other piece of that threads in before I close is how these unconscious expectations of each other in relational patterns feed what we become distracted by or addicted to or compulsively attending in the relationships, because trying to soothe that sense of I'm not quite safe with this person expecting something from me, because there's an awareness here, there's a deeper truth here that I can't meet that expectation. How could I? There's nobody here to meet that. I might not be open to that possibility yet, but there's a cellular level sense of oh, they're expecting me to be the smart one or good one or the high achiever or the powerful one or who I was 5 minutes ago or whatever. Like that person never existed. That expectation is mapped onto this illusion, and feeling that dissonance, that sense of not quite okay, and knowing human beings and our propensity to be unconscious and to harm out of unconsciousness. Of course we feel threatened by, what's this person going to do if I don't meet their expectations? And I don't know, depending on the person, there might be consequences. So I'm not saying to go out and open your eyes to all these patterns and expect things to be free and easy, but I do know that when we turn towards them, that's the freedom. It's the freedom here. I'll tell you, that woman who named her expectation for me, my experience of that was this domino gift of the movement of energy here. But for her to be able to name her expectation and to move with it and to feel into that, it's just a shell that cracks and crumbles. The freedom to move through life without that expectation anymore allowed that connection, freedom of her authority. It doesn't need me in that moment anymore. And wow,